Welcome, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745, and we're playing as the United States, and it is September 1941. So the war is likely getting very near. Maybe even this episode. We will see. Okay, we have 5 liners here. What difference do we have? Fight tanks. Okay, chat. How heavily do we try to defend the Philippines? We have, and I disliked, and I know the author who came in, or whatever you want to call him, who came in and created the 2 province islands. I said he asked me what did I think of him, and I told him he was wrong to do it. Not that they were badly done, but it was wrong because Guam is much smaller than this, and I sort of get the idea of battling between it, but now I can place more, but it makes it harder to for the AI to defend. And again here, Iwo Jima, because the AI is likely to want to defend the port, and then Mount Suribachi, they'll run out of supplies, and it just, I don't know, it's just not for the best, quite honestly. If we were playing a more tactical, board or more tactical game based around the campaign of either Guam or Iwo Jima or something, then yeah, they would be, more like that would be a good idea. But I don't think it's correct for this. But how heavily should we defend the Philippines? How heavily? Does anyone have any opinions? Heavy? Light? British still holding out in Singapore. Pushing into Burma. As usual, the AI can't do that very. Heavy toy jet says. Okay. Yep. Now that does mean that the don't know, big red one. I'm worried a little bit that some of these divisions might get snapped away from me. With events. Okay. So, okay, what we'll do here is we'll move at least most of these guys over to here. Oh, yes, there's even more back. Boy, Arno, you've got... Make it a bastion of liberty on the Pacific, right? Okay, so, well, let's move in. I'm not going to move the big red one, so let's detach. No, I didn't need to do that. Unload. I went to, yeah, detach that, but I want to move in the second core. No, I don't want to attach. I'm going to do this. Why am I hitting all the wrong button? Restart YouTube. No, I'm not going to do that. That messes other things up. Diamond. Okay, that one can go on board here. And the rest up to rebase up to here. I don't think that would do it. It's not the worst idea, but I don't think that'll do it now. Somewhat in line with watching they were expendable. This is called the U.S. or Auxiliary Coast Guard Fleet, but motor torpedo boat. We're going to think of this. And we're going to send these guys out to the Philippines. Now, I think they mostly use ships to get the um, boats, or had to use ships to get the boats, torpedo boats across the Atlantic or the Pacific. I guess that just simply spamming out their their .com addresses get people to show up to it. So let's yeah, we'll do that research, scientific research. Control systems training, very good. I know there's a lot of these kind of things, and they get sort of boring to. Okay, we'll let that continue to watch, but we're more research slots back. We can do submarine crew training. Let's put that. Well, I forget already. Wow, my mind is going. Was it the Red Star? I think so. We'll detach them from there and put them on board. And cavalry division, I guess, with the armor. And of course, this means we might not have to. We're going to take longer to get going with some of our other operations, but well. Oh, so support prototyping CAG fighter focus. That would be not grayed out, but we'll unclick that, and that would be CAG fighter focus is over here. Undo. Okay, well, we're doing a lot of upgrades. We're going to let that continue. I'm not going to hope to get a bigger boost at some point here with ICs, but we will have these guys coming soon, which will free up a lot. Now, because we are looking at somewhat of a Pacific campaign here, Don't need a transport for a lot of the duties. On some sort of rugged jungle type division. So let's do two of these, get them into production. That'll be for going into the Dutch East Indies and other places. Okay, the Cleveland. Is it the Cleveland? It's going to be the Cleveland class? Is it Cleveland, the Cleveland class? Okay, let's drop that just in here as independent ship. Commanded by Fletcher. No, it's a St. Louis class. So the USS Cleveland is the St. Louis class, not the Cleveland class. Yes. Maybe it's a sign of success that we're getting bots. But it's an annoying one if it is. These guys are heading out. They're moving fairly fast. Moderately well escorted. I mean, if they get hit by a big fleet, they'll just get chewed up, I know, but money. Okay, airborne assault tactics. Oh, that's under air here. Yeah, no, we can let that continue. Okay, twin engine fighter prototype, which is here. Yeah, we'll switch over to other things. We'll be back in at some point. Not quite sure. Okay, whatever. Use which reduce attacks, but time between attacks, which is important. But let's continue here with increasing some of our crew training levels. Radar. I'm going to try to do radar guided bombs. It's electronic warfare. Oh, we have to wait for bomb load. Bomb load, that's probably going to be much later. Yeah, 44. Yeah, no, do that yet. Yeah, let's just come down here and continue improving all the training, battleship crew training. They don't sink our battleships too much. We'll deal with that. And what's the other one? Oh, medium bomber prototype, which allows now research up here. Okay, so we have, besides including with the Philippines, we have 2 divisions here. Okay. Yes. And armor plating advance. And what is it? Air systems, or yeah. We could do air cooling system. Speed, fuel consumption up, range down a bit. Okay, well, we'll go with that. Torpedo bomber. These two being researched now. Light AA. Motor torpedo boats have arrived. Let's put a leader in. Doesn't have to be a good one, just a leader. There we go. Let's promote him to. Okay, so we have some submarines to operate out here. We can promote Burke up. I think we should be promoted. All right, so we have a fleet to operate out here. Export. So do we Venezuela? Okay. Expand our mines. Oh yes, that's what I thought maybe. Let's pop all these up here. Use that, and Italy has lost the Comte de Cavour. Don't know what that is. Presuming it's some battleship or something. Wonder where they were battling to lose that, with the British somewhere. Well, this is going somewhat historical here. British had pushed in a little bit. Italy did take that during its war with France, so it's a little bit bigger to the east. Germany's pushed in nicely. Russia's still holding Leningrad. Finland, which is sort of surprising because I have seen at times in my last playthrough, I saw the Soviets push deep into Finland during the continuation war. Thank you, Toyjet. Yeah, I'm not up on all the names of the Italian battleships. So they're even outside Murmansk. Wow. It's doing fairly well. So yeah, they're doing fairly well here. As you may know, some of these episodes are very poorly watched. We're going slower via the clock than I had been earlier because the war is going more, and there's more for me to pay attention to, like placing all of these things. And I know a few people have complained. I totally get it. Well, you don't finish series. Well, if we stop having people watch Okay, that is steel refinery, but steel. Okay, we don't have enough people watching, so I'm putting up with a lower viewership here for this series because it is sort of peacetime and not that interesting. But I really do hope if you're at all interested in this series that if we can get enough viewers to go once America starts into the war. Ooh, 30 so base. Okay, yeah, we have 2 slots for this. So we're going to max out Cleveland steel production. Okay, coal is just 7, so let's make it bigger. Coal base, coal 10. If we get a lot of people watching, which I hope we will, once the war really starts. Okay, that's maxed out. Now it's okay, but something more than some of these coal. Well, we're very good on coal. Okay-ish on steel. If we push up heavily more, we may run out of steel, and we're just okay on rares. So why I went for another one of these. Go for mining resources, which of course takes away from other bases to grow it. No, I don't know America enough. This map, at least, where all good spots. High base values of coal, energy, say it. Maybe that 5 look good. Okay, we already max that out. Yeah, don't click back at places. Okay. Field and Hartford. I'll actually do 2 just because I'm not that concerned with coal. There's something out in the west here. Okay, rares extraction. Now that is something more rare. That's 5, but I want to see if I can find some high value rares. Now, those watching either live, oh, there's a 10. So, yeah, let's put 2 here. Recently had somebody, and I totally understand where they're coming from, that made a video, and it's been quite a while since I made the video, so I don't remember exactly what I was saying in it about how can you defeat, or how could the Soviet Union be defeated, and they particularly wanted, it sounded like from the comments, how to do it in Hearts of Iron 3. I think that's as opposed to Hearts of Iron 4 or something. That's what they would have preferred as a video, as opposed to me talking about the various subjects that I talk about that aren't directly related to that. Hey, look, it's the worst toy. No, that was Hoi 2. I've never played Hoi 2. I thought people hated the shit out of Hoi 3. Well, I think I think Hoi 3 Black Ice, the current Black Ice, is the best toy out there for a realistic World War II experience. Put all those qualifiers there. Um, maybe some of the mods working um, that are getting better, like Hoi 4 Black Ice or whatever, might get better someday. But Hoi 4 is not realistic to World War II in many ways. And I have not played Hoi 1 or 2, so I don't know that. And yeah, so I don't know. I don't know. So I like Hoi. I like the Black Ice version. It's much better than the standard vanilla version. So yeah, so this poster really wanted, how to defeat the Soviet Union playing Hoi 3. Talk on, how to do it. And I was talking, I know more on, wrong button, on, historically and, aircraft prototype, which sorry, I'm getting distracted by playing the game. Here. Okay, yeah. Yes, they've added a lot of buttons here, which I can totally get that people get overwhelmed with. For example, Hoi 2, you can buy ships, aircraft, and such from other nations, not like Lend Lease, but actually, yeah, that would be good. Like I say, Arno, and anybody watching, I have not played Hoi 2, or 1, so I don't know the details of that game at all. I've looked at some videos way long time ago of somebody playing it, but not very detailed. They all have their strengths. I love the idea that you're dealing with equipment, building equipment, and training units in Hoi 4. And there's a lot of good things in Hoi 4. A lot of good stuff. But basically, the European map has half the number of provinces as it does in Hoi 3. Well, that's good from an AI perspective when you have, I've got 8 divisions as the Netherlands, and I've got 16 provinces on the border to try to defend, and the AI can only defend the border, so there's going to be holes in the defense. The AI is so bad, and I don't know if Suter is still here, but the AI is so fucking bad. Paradox thinks it can build a good AI. Combat AI, we're talking about combat AI. Well, it can't. It can't, because it has been unable to. And they don't want to do a scripted AI because you'll learn how to defeat it. Well, if their unscripted AI is worse than a scripted AI, it's easier to defeat. They can't get an idea of, hey, let's, defend a short border, defend up here, put a division here and then try to, defend, if you only have 8 divisions, put 2 divisions in each of 4 provinces and defend a small border. They can't figure that out. And when I talked to, Don a long time ago, no, we want this more dynamic AI, it's going to improve, blah, blah, blah. And they've been unable to improve it. Now, maybe the guy just doesn't like Hoi 4, so he doesn't do it, or maybe they could, but they don't spend the money to have the guy take the time to improve the AI. Still here, good. So they don't spend the money to have the AI improve it. I mean, when you look at like EU, they make big doomstack AIs that move around the, combat units that move around the map and conquer province, and that works out okay. and is challenging. It's been a long time since I've even played Hoi or EU4, but I've played it enough. I used to play the original EU all to hell, but they can't figure out an AI. I wanted them to create a scripted AI, but also give us a player ability to script the AIs. You know, a WYSIWYG type thing, and then be able to put in weights on which likely use AIs that, you know, defense plans or attack plans. You know, so you script a defensive plan or attack plans. You script these things out, and then the AI then picks like, oh well, this you know, has a large likelihood of happening, or maybe some off the wall ones that but might work have a lower likely of happening. So you don't, it's not just the one on, you know, okay, but they didn't want to do that, and so what they've done is they've taken it and made it fewer provinces. So you have fewer provinces and you build bigger doom stacks and you move them around instead of having the tactical flow that you have in Hoi 3 with more provinces. Now, I do believe on the map, overall, there's a roughly equal number of provinces, and they do have and I know they've improved the engine over time, a problem with having too many provinces on the map for the computers to handle them. But what they've done is they've added provinces to places like South America. Who the fuck cares about North and South America? I mean, really. And this is where, oh, well, the players who are playing Brazil care. Yeah, okay. Brazil does come into World War II. Brazil sends an expeditionary force that's, I think, a brigade strong, and it fights very bravely and very well in Italy. Who the fuck cares about Brazilian people playing these other nations? Because yes, they joined the war at some point, many of the nations, but there was no fighting there. These are low priorities. You just mostly have the U.S. as the final boss country to take down at the end if you're playing as the Axis or something. Beyond that, they don't really matter. And so to get more provinces in places that aren't going to have war and reduce the number of provinces where you are going to have war, that to me is a big mistake. So this is why I really like Hoi 4, but I love Hoi 3 more. It's for all the good that they've implemented in Hoi 4, they've lost good things in Hoi 3. And I get players don't want to fiddle around with picking this divisional commander. I get that, but that just means you need a decent script or AI program to look at flags or tags or however you want to say it of the brigades in a division, and then try to pick a reasonably good division commander based on that. And you could do some of that stuff and keep it in Hoi 4 that most players can just not pay attention to because it's just too much detail, and the AI does some of the basic housekeeping stuff well enough, and you'd have a better game. So I get the complaints. It just, I see it very much as a pendulum. People complained about the supply problems in Hoi 3. They totally get rid of Hoi supply in Hoi 4. Oh no, it's still there. No. Yes, it is. No, it isn't. Hoi supply, there is no supply in Hoi 4. There is supply effects, or the effects of not having enough supply in Hoi 4. They have had to put in, because of complaints, oil. Well, oil is just, when you build the battleship or you build the truck, you're also building enough oil for their whole existence, whether that's 10 minutes on the battlefield when they get destroyed or 10 years sailing around the seas, they get all that oil. No, they finally did this. And the reason you point out the supply being a real issue, manufacturing of supply, which could be just manufacturing of munitions, if you want to say it. It was something like one getting ready for one Russian offensive or whatever against the Austrians or something during World War One. And the Russians had something, I know I got the details wrong, but the details on this doesn't matter, just illustrating the point. The Russians had something like 100 artillery pieces ready to go for this offensive barrage, and that getting ready to go, the Russians to go attack the Austrians. And they had something like, they stocked up and ammunition ready to go. And the Russians had something like 5 artillery rounds per gun. That's all they could get there. They had like 100 guns or however many guns, but they had 5 rounds on average or whatever, because there's some different calibers, I'm sure, but like 5 rounds per gun. So they could do that initial opening artillery barrage, and then those are just big pieces of junk sitting there at that point. Okay, so it's not just supply effects in that you are, and I really love that they had, after I leave the beta, because they removed me from the beta because I was no longer participating. I totally admit it had been over a year since I'd sent in a beta report or tested the beta version of Hoi 4, so they were just cleaning house. So this isn't, I'm not salty over this. I truly had not, it had been like a year or more since I'd even posted in the beta forum or made a report about a beta thing. They were just cleaning house, and so I totally understand why I'm no longer in the beta. But it was after I left the beta they add railways to the game, something that I had been asking for since before release. But so I would have loved to have been, and I would have participated in that if they had said, "Hey, well, gamer, do you want to stay in the beta? We're gonna while you're still under NDA, we're gonna put in railways, and you can be involved in that." I would have said yes, please. But okay, so I love that they get railways in it. And sure, they have effects that your German units way out at Stalingrad with just one railway connection, you have a huge number of divisions, they're going to be starving of supply. I get that. That's great. And that is a good addition to the game. I think that really helps things. But that's presuming that Germany can produce enough supplies. When you see America and its producing of supplies, if the Germans have 20 artillery pieces per division and the Americans have 20 artillery pieces per division, but America can daily produce 200 rounds for those 20 artillery pieces, and the Germans can daily produce 20 rounds for those 20 guns. Those aren't the equal number of effective guns. It's how many rounds you can shoot out of the gun. Now, of course, you have the supply effects, is how many ports has, you're invading Europe, and how many ports has the Americans captured, how much supply can you get in and going to the troops, and how much you're using it. But if you can't, if you got to go, hey, my units in combat are soaking up supplies, and they soak up, and the artillery soaks up supplies based upon, how many guns in an artillery battery or how many batteries within the division and whatnot. And so a division that has twice as much artillery in it uses a whole lot more supplies than just, because, as we're going to presume that artillery, because if we're talking supply, yeah, sort of kind of represents food, sort of kind of represents boots and uniforms and that kind of stuff. But if we're looking at it mainly as munitions, which it heavily should be, an artillery division or artillery piece is going to use up a lot more supply production, because making 100 millimeter rounds or 105 millimeter rounds or whatever is a lot more complicated than making a 30 caliber carbine bullet. Okay, so the machinery, the time it takes to make it. So the more artillery you flood into it, to a division, should in combat burn up a lot more supply. Not just maybe sitting there, not just like sort of holding the line by sitting on the front line, so if you had a bunch of divisions, in Stalingrad, not just like a pocket, which you could, be flying in air power, I get, but like if you're just holding the line and the Soviets are holding the line, and you're both sitting there, but no one's doing actual offensive action. Okay, they're eating up some supplies just because they would be sort of sparring with each other, shooting at each other a little bit going on. But you're not doing a major offensive, or you're not defending against a major offensive. So the divisions aren't eating up supplies in a heavy way. But you put them into heavy combat, they're going to burn up the supplies. So their supply effects in Hoi 4 are all based on the presumption that you can produce that. And I know how much. I know it's more detailed than maybe I'm making it out, but it's just supply should be in the game. But supply is so atrocious because they didn't have railways, because the DLC that was being worked on for Hoi 3 that had railways is sort of delayed, and it's worked on by a third party, I understand. There was delays in its production, and then they thought they were going to get Hoi 4 out there for a year or more earlier than they did, so they canceled that DLC that might have that did have railways in it, that ended up being sort of released as a I don't know if half finished would be the right term, but partially finished mod that had some sort of railways in it, but could have been done better. Are there any new models for tanks or aircrafts or weapons? Well, we can take a quick look for these. So we're on the M3A3 Stuart, so fairly late for the Stuarts. And we're still back on the Christies. They're on the white scout cars for mechanized, not even on half tracks yet. Well, they call it a half track, but oh god, people. Gamer must just like to complain about things, and that's all he ever does, of course. But it says M3 half track, and they have a picture of I think it is the M3 white scout car. I mean, there's no track on that. People, can't you get the effing name in the picture right? I don't know which one this is supposed to be. And they did sort of kind of use these scout cars sort of kind of as ersatz personnel carriers briefly, but mostly, no. Special purpose armor. Well, that's a little bit later than now the LVT as it goes through in its sort of versions, but that's not the worst thing in the world. Infantry tanks, which we're not going to build, we're still back on the combat car because I've not been researching. I sort of stole that technology from Britain. Armored support. Okay, yeah, they have the elephant here. Okay, self-propelled artillery. Well, okay, M3 75mm. That'd be about right, but that's a 105 in there. That's I'm pretty sure that's a 105 pictured in there, as opposed to the 75, which were French World War I guns. So yeah, tank destroyer. Okay, yeah, that's the 75mm French guns. Armored cars. Well, there's the scout car, same vehicle, just without its canvas top on. Okay, motorcycles, got Harleys out there. So, and we can take a look at aircraft, which I know enjoy as well, and you guys. Okay, so what is that? Oh well, it says up here F4F. I was thinking F4F, and then the TBF, Grumman TBF. Their heavy transport plane. That's the DC-3 or the C-54 as the British like to call it. Flying Fortress B-17. Grumman J4F Gosling. Okay, that looks like the I guess successor to the Grumman Goose. And we have Lockheed I don't know about that aircraft. Medium bombers, the B-25 Mitchell, the only aircraft type, I think, ever, but definitely during World War II that was named after a person and not something else like a Mustang or whatever. And the Douglas A-24, don't know much about that. Light bomber, I like the Havoc, the B-20, or the A-20 Havoc, I should say. Those are cool. Okay, P-43, twin engine fighter. Okay, these are the Aracuda, sort of a silly aircraft, I think. And interceptors, we are at the P-39 Era Cobra, and regular transport plane Lockheed Super Electra. So yeah, I guess those are the basic types. So yeah, so I'm torn between Hoi 3 and Hoi 4. I really am. The Grumman TA series fighters were named after Kurt Tank, if that counts. Oh, the German TA. Oh, yeah, Kurt Tank. Right, yes. I've read it as Grumman first because I was thinking of American stuff. I'm gonna read that chat correctly. I don't know if it helps. It's different country, different thing. I mean, it's interesting facts. Okay, active sonar for ships. Okay, so let's continue with our, well, yeah, let's continue with our Navy here. Escort rules, but positioning. We need more officers, so let's zero going into diplomacy, but we're not using any. Research a little more into officers, keep that up. Okay, have we got? Yes. There we go. You get back out of the potential war zone. Okay, there's still another convoy coming. Okay. So we now have, well, let's put you up to here, right in between those to move to whichever one, or if they try to land on the others and push in. We still have our central, or we still have a reserve back holding. Vanilla, because that's sort of key. Here, okay, bombing site advanced. Have we got our Norton bombing site? They were building them before the war, but they evolved over time, as far as I understand. And so a nation should have, you should go, hey, do I want to build lots of supply to supply my artillery pieces or whatever, or do I want to build lots of equipment? Now, if you are, say, like Germany, and let's look at a World War II case of, like the situation of I generally call it, I don't know if everyone calls it this, but the Soviet counteroffensive, you know, after Barbarossa, you know, with the winter, the winter of 41 into 42, counteroffensive, pushing out from Moscow, Germany loses huge amounts of equipment in that. A lot of the soldiers get out. they're able to withdraw, but just so much equipment, captured equipment, German equipment, just literally can't move because it's sort of frozen in place. Um, and so the Soviets capture huge amounts of stuff and actually use Panzer IIIs as tanks, but a lot of them they figure that are undergunned, so they put a casemate turret on them and a bigger gun in them, but a big sort of boxy casemate, not low like a Stug. Excuse me. So, enough in the hundred or so, not hundreds, but 100 or so of these things. So they capture so much of this equipment, either intact or fixable, that they use the stuff. But the personnel get out, or a lot of them do. Unlike also losing large amounts of equipment in Stalingrad and Tunisia. They're about the same amount of overall disasters for both of those events. So, if you avoided those three events as playing as Germany, well, yeah, some of the equipment, particularly a lot of the equipment lost in the Barbarossa counteroffensive, is now outdated. When they go into Barbarossa, they're still using Panzer Is. Germany's still using a lot of Panzer I tanks. Now, some of those tanks are turned into Jag Panzers or whatever, and Jag Panzer Is, and a few of them have. Excuse me, just a second. Gotta bring something here. A few of them are turned into, put a 20 millimeter AA piece on them. You see like that in War Thunder. I mean, that was uncommon, and there were a few of them. But so some of them are repurposed. Some of them also get a big, the 150 millimeter Schwer infantry Geschütz gun mounted on it with a big gun shield there. So some of them are sort of repurposed over to other uses. But a lot are still in use in going in to Soviet Union, and they're still effective at machine gunning infantry. And they still do the machine gunning infantry just as well as they ever had. They're just not really useful as tanks. And a lot of those vehicles are lost, and a lot of Panzer IIs are lost, and whatnot in this counteroffensive, because so many vehicles just break down in one fashion or another during the advance into it, and German logistics aren't able to get them rapidly back into service again because they're breaking down because of poor maintenance and heavy use. And so all these vehicles a lot of these vehicles are swept up in the counteroffensive, and the Russians don't even want them. But so some of the stuff would be, yeah, we really didn't want the equipment anyways anymore. It was outdated. Now, of course, it would be better to scrap it or something than leave it for the Soviets. But a lot of it wouldn't have been. A lot of it would have been useful. So, yeah, do you want to have a slow and steady production of your tanks or your artillery pieces, or are you needing to replace a lot of that gear, or can you do the slow and steady with lots of munitions productions? And that's what I see is wrong. Okay, what? Oh, on Facebook. Wow, we have somebody I think spamming me on Facebook here. Yeah. Hey, Arno, you want to go take care of that spam post on Facebook? And there's more YouTube spam posts as well showing up here. Got things. I don't know. Do you have moderator capability? Yeah, you do over on Facebook. I know you do. So you can go do those. Go kill those things. So yeah, this is, yeah, I know I'm complaining about stuff. Bombing site advance. Okay, we've already done that. Okay. So the British have conquered Iraq. Protect independence of Iraq. We protect independence as a full nation. Democratic government Iraq. Install democracy in Iraq. It looks like it's still occupied here. Getting a lot of action from bots today. Don't know if that's a good sign or a bad sign. There we go. Okay, so now we're seeing this as an allied friendly Iraq instead of an Axis friendly Iraq. Well, they've cut off Leningrad. Victory. We shall form division headquarters of the 5th Armored Division. Victory at Camp Pine. Okay, excellent. Okay, we now have a few of these. 5th Armored Division. So we're just getting to headquarters, so we should build some armored divisions at some point without HQs. Rare materials, a little bit low on steel. Decent one. Let's try importing or stop exporting some of that. Colombia. Well, they just want to keep you busy, Arno. Let's add this to the Cleveland bunch. I don't know. A lot of what I'm doing is checking just to get these guys now out. I don't want to transport vessels. The Briscoe. All right, well, it's first corps. Get to second corps. Should be in theater. Let's move you to there. Let's get no, not McCartney, Patton. Kruger. Here we go. I don't know. I don't. Unfortunately, I don't think it is. I wish it was because I was becoming super popular and they knew they were going to reach a big audience by posting here. But I think it's just the bots are getting more and more spammy on YouTube. Okay, so we have a lightweight sort of armored force here. Let's look over it. Okay, so we have mountains. We've got plains over here. We've got plains here. And hills. And some jungle here. Okay, let's move the armor division. Well, we just have them on the beach, but they can move around there. Let's move one of these divisions up. Oh, even more's coming in on YouTube. Wow. Oh, they're really hitting hard on YouTube. It's a flood of bots. It's a bot flood. Flood bot. Move you over to this port. Okay, I think we sort of kind of have the Philippines figured out. For now, we've got Guam. Unfortunately, these divisions are sort of split up, but it's better than just a garrison regiment there. Wake, we have both the original sort of Marine Brigade, and an Army division there. Well balanced, other than it doesn't have a transport unit, so it doesn't move so fast, but nowhere to move it to. And also on Midway, if they come after Midway, we are reasonably well defended. Okay, so we've got that sort of sorted. I'm tempted. Maybe I will not on screen, but make an episode where I go back to some. Well, you can even do a save now. Go back to a save and take a look and see what's going on here, or back a little ways, and because I really don't want to spy on my adversaries too much, but also see what's going on in some of these places here. As to, this is looking pretty good. One of the commenters, and it did sort of look like we might be liberating Europe from Russia as opposed to from Germany, but actually, as an AI versus AI result, the Finns have really pushed in against the Soviets, which is unhistorical. They did not go past the previous boundaries, but that's looking pretty good. Where's Moscow? It's here. Okay. Yeah, obviously they're not yet at the gates of Moscow, but got Leningrad completely surrounded, not just partially, historically. They're pushing into here. So yeah, that's doing fairly good, and this is going fairly historical down here. Neither are crushing each other, which is okay. Battle fleet concentration, which, yeah, okay. We can do cruiser warfare. That's looking good. Italy's still going pretty well down here. I don't know if they just have a big supply depot somewhere with supplies. That may have been event driven. Historically, Italy did set up an air bridge that flew from. They set up an air base somewhere out in here for refueling, and they were able, with their trimotor transport planes, for a while at least, fly here. And there was basically, well, no, they didn't have to fly over anything like Khartoum that might have had anti-aircraft defense. And there was basically no fighters here, that they could just fly over this even in daylight enough, but not to fly in supplies. And they were flying in not volume of supplies like, artillery shells and any sort of big ways, but medicines and small, high value supplies, and flying out wounded, and flying in some specialist personnel. They were doing a fair amount of that. How much is traded away? Not much, but we could always stop that if we need to. Okay, yeah. And, ooh, we got the U.S.S. Intrepid. Now let's start another. Well, let's put it out here on the Atlantic coast. Here. Start a new group. No, I don't know much about Kincaid. I only sort of know about a few of the admirals that were around Halsey, that were around Nimitz, like Halsey and whatnot. But this other uses for a blockade run. Yeah, I just don't know enough about the naval side of things to have these as recognizable figures for me. Okay, Soviet Union has now decided to do Great Patriotic War. You have to understand the meaning of that for the Soviet Union. I'm trying to think here. I don't know. I'm sure there's some nuances to the meaning, but I really don't know if there's a practical. I'm thinking while I'm trying to speak here, a practical difference in between the meanings of two words here that I'm gonna. One, patriotism, and two, nationalism. I'm not talking nationalism as like you're a nationalist political faction, like in Spain. And we sort of use that, but just generally nationalistic. Because patriotism is, in essence, love of one's country, and maybe the definition might sort of maybe the definition is patriotism is love of your country, and nationalism is love of your nation. That could be it. Just trying to think here how you define these, because I was asked recently, am I nationalistic? And it was somebody who I know wasn't an English language speaker as a primary language, as a secondary language, and they might not just naturally use the term patriotic like we would in America. And a country and a nation are two different things. And we generally call, in America, we call it a country. But you could change that over to being a state. But we don't normally use states because states have come to mean sort of like provinces in America. But and the reason I'm defining that is somewhat different is Germany is a nation. West Germany and East Germany are states. Okay. Now, the modern Germany is also a state. It's both a state and a nation. And Austria may be becoming a nation. I don't know if it's yet a nation. It is definitely a state, but a nation, I guess, has a national identity. Like Italy, you're Italian, kind of thing. American might be, and this might be, and that might be sort of why. And I don't know what the Great Patriotic War for decision Great Patriotic War in the Soviet Union. I don't know who and how the term Great Patriotic is used, whether that is something that we in the West has put on it or how it is translated. I don't know. In Russian, do they have two different words, meaning do they have the Great Nationalistic War and the Great Patriotic War? Do they have that distinction between them? And I don't know because of propaganda. You have to look at it. Which means you got a bot. But yes, Cassini 4. Thank you. Arno is supposed to be killing those bots. He's been killing some of them. But thank you, Cassini. Yes, I've been plagued by them all day, and Arno, my moderator, has been crushing many of them, but there's a few more been showing up. Yeah, I know. And I don't want it there. But thank you. So I don't know, and you have to sort of how the Russians and their, because sometimes I try to use my language distinctively here between Soviet and Russian or something. Because they can be referring to the Russian people, or we can be referring to the Soviet government. And so I try to use my language precisely. I don't know in Russian how, in a Great Patriotic War, if there would be a different words used if it was the Great Nationalistic War. So how that word, and in America we would always commonly refer to greatly patriotic, not nationalistic, because in America we recognize, even within the general Anglo community, if you will, the Anglos of the Carolinas and the Virginias are very different than the Anglos of Massachusetts and Maine. So there are significant distinctions there, but also acknowledging that there are other ethnicities that make up the American quilt, as it were. So that may be some of the distinction, but you really have to look at and understand when the Great Patriotic War. Prior to this, Stalin and the Soviets are trying to stamp out patriotism to Russia, as it were. They are trying to stamp out nationalistic tendencies. And not just other nationalistic tendencies like the Baltic states or Ukraine or Georgia or Kazakhstan or wherever. Yeah, they sort of set up Soviet Socialist Republics of Ukraine or whatever. They do set those up, but they're trying to stamp that out because they are trying to go for their new Soviet ideal, which is not nationalistic. So when the Soviets, and Stalin is at the top of it, so so obviously, and the paranoid Stalin has to agree to it, but I don't know who's making the detailed decisions. I don't know if this was a Stalin plan or whether this was a plan somebody proposed to Stalin and he said yes to it. I'm not sure. Just don't know the history well enough. Very good, Arno. Please keep up the hard work. Thanks. But they really go with their propaganda and their ideas of particularly Russian nationalism in the Soviet Union to fight the Great Patriotic War, to fight the fascists. They always use fascist, and as far as I can tell, they rarely use Nazi or whatever. It's always the fascist enemy, but almost all enemies are considered fascist in Soviet propaganda, at least post-World War II propaganda. They call the West fascist. Yeah, right. Okay. So it's a huge change in emphasis, which I would have to say acknowledges, and then of course after the war they try to switch it back to being, Soviet socialist and not nationalistic. But what I would have to say shows the failure of the socialist communistic idea. And I wonder how much you people are interested in hearing me talk about this, because I know I get complaints. But we can see nationalism back in the Middle Ages. I'm not worried about Roman or classical Europe, but we can see nationalism in the Middle Ages. But really, nationalism really comes about with the French Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars that spread the French revolutionary ideas around. Prior to it, you definitely had local isms, but the elites that you, for whatever reasons, and often they were very apparent reasons, that though they might not be the reasons we would explain why the elites were ruling. Well, because being able to read and write was not a common trait in Europe before, the French Revolutionary Wars. So meaning most people didn't read and write to any extent. They might be able to see the sign that says beer and know that that's a place where you can buy beer, but probably the mug symbol above it was as much of a telling symbol as anything else. So, and the people who could read and write, well, obviously they're going to be the rulers because they understand things so much more, and you're just good at being a farmer or a cobbler or whatever your job is. And so you trust your ruling elites because they're the ruling elites, and there's quite honestly no better option going at the time. It's really in America where you have, really at the time of the American Revolution, there's widespread literacy, greater, and I know this better in Britain than I do in other places, but I do, from everything I hear, Britain is at least on the forward edge of being able to read and write as a percentage of the populations. So I figure it's getting much worse. So if half your population or 2/3 of your population cannot read and write, those it's the one-eyed man in the kingdom of the blind is the king. It's those who can understand things. Of course, you want them to be ruling. Well, nowadays, of course, everyone just about in the Western world can read and write. Now, they might not be able to read and write the local language because people are moving around so much, but that's a different issue. So, with looking at this, and this is important, looking at what we're seeing today, socialism, communism have not been able to stamp out nationalism. Europeans are afraid, deathly afraid of nationalism. Nationalism is bad. So much so that they've convinced themselves that they no longer have a culture, that they're no longer relevant, and that any people can just simply be people in their countries and it won't matter. So they're getting flooded by peoples not of their culture. But they're afraid of nationalism because they see hyper-nationalism, particularly Germany and Italy, causing a world war. I mean, there are reasons for their irrational fears, but they're irrational in that they're overly done. Fears of nationalism, of patriotism, of national identity. The whole European project, that of the EU, and I know people, oh no, it's some sort of confederation. No, it is the European Union, you fucking idiots. It's going to look like America in the sense of Germany will just sort of be some state in some union that all the laws will be like America. Maybe not the same laws of America, I'm not saying that, but in the centralized power, there will be a capital, and it will be where every decision is made for every European Union country happening. Now, it is a slow evolutionary process, not a revolutionary process, partially just because they need to overcome the nationalism that they see as the enemy of the individual countries. And yes, I do not want conquering nationalistic peoples out there, but we see this right now in Russia. And Russia is very much using nationalism, patriotism, whatever you want to call it. This is what Europe fears, but is using that as at least internal propaganda as supporting the war in Ukraine. But why don't the people of Ukraine want to be Russia? Because of nationalism. Okay? There is, Ukraine's a fucking corrupt country. It has corrupt politicians. It is corrupt to its core. Okay? It is a kleptocracy. Half or more of the oligarchs of Ukraine were Russian puppet proxy type peoples in Ukraine. Okay? So what the hell does it matter to the goddamn Germans, Italians, or French if there's freaking Moscow-based corrupt ruler in Ukraine or Ukraine-based ruler in Ukraine? What the hell does it matter to them? What corrupt rulers in Ukraine? Now I know Zelensky is the brave hero, and he's a fucking TV star. He's another fucking Trump. Whether you like Trump or you hate Trump, he's a TV star who portrayed a president. People were fed up with their corrupt governments, so he did a good job pretending to be president. Let's make him fucking president. We have such fucking up elites, and I know I'm getting mad here, but such messed up elites. Germany of the 40s got what they wanted in the EU control of Europe. Yes, you're talking now. It's control. That's now it's a different. And yes, and I know you don't mean that it's the same National Socialist goals and objectives, but it is control of Europe. Oh, absolutely. And they want to organize. They want to do German organization to Latin countries. I don't think that's going to work very well. Turnlow, I don't think that's going to work very well because they're different cultures. I'm a culturalist. I'm not a racist. I'm a culturalist. I'm an ist, yes, but I'm a culturalist, not racist. I do think some cultures are better than other cultures, and some of it we can look at as practical. Look as better is that they're more successful. Some are less successful, but some, England can be great and actually do great breakfasts, in my opinion, but they're not the great chefs of the world, okay? So they're not perfect. Anglo culture may not be perfect. We know that. And so there's room for other cultures, and it doesn't, but maybe every culture could benefit from a good sprinkling of Anglo-ness in its culture. It doesn't mean they need to become English, or Anglo is generic as Australians, New Zealanders, Americans, or Canadians are a mutation of Englishness, but it comes from that. So they don't all need to become England, but they'd all do with some Anglo-ness culture brought into them. And yes, Anglo-ness does come out of Germanic cultures, but it isn't nearly as organized and state-centric as, very much not so, as Germanness. But, what does it really matter? Now, yeah, I do, and I've talked about how it's a serious problem if Russia or Putin or whatever is going to swallow up Ukraine and then going to swallow up the Baltic states and maybe causing another world war. Now, it may be unlike Hitler, who, had he gotten Memel and truly just gotten Danzig and not tried to go for the whole Danzig corridor, left Poland a corridor to the sea, and Hitler stopped there and didn't kill mass numbers of people and all those other evil things he did, it might have been successful, just unifying the sort of willing German peoples, just getting the Sudetenland, not getting Czechoslovakia or Bohemia and Moravia, just Sudetenland, just Memel, just Danzig, just Austria, just that kind of stuff. And, if it just had been that, yeah, and more overseers than direct control, but it will be continued centralization. And it will be, because I've studied enough governments either work towards centralization, which is the tendency, or if things start to becoming too centralized, they will start to fragment and work for separation. We are definitely seeing now in America various reasons, some on the right, some on the left. California is upset with some of the Supreme Court decisions. No Supreme Court decision has been made that bans abortion. If anybody out there in the world, including Americans, are mistaken, the Supreme Court just decided the states can make their own choices. You can make your own choices. You can pass a law in your state that protects abortion or bans it. Supreme Court did not ban abortion. They just overturned the laws keeping states from banning abortion. But but some states, are defying federal laws, and other states aren't, and whatnot. And so there's either things are going to tend towards centralization, and that's how government and power works, or there will be a collapse of centralized power, and they will tend to separate. And that can vary. And right now, everything is moving towards whether it's direct control or just more and more centralization. And it very well may be inclusive. Instead of having German administrators everywhere, they'll, be following German rules, but everybody, Spaniards and Italians and Frenchmen will all be in there too. But so, if corrupt Russia was just going to swallow up some corrupt East Bloc, former Soviet, not Warsaw Pact, but former Soviet countries, what the fuck does that matter to the damn the other Europeans? Because they're doing the same thing in Europe. They're creating a super non-nationalistic state in Europe. Why can't Russia do that? If culture and nationalism doesn't matter, doesn't mean a thing. Italians are the same as Germans. They are not. You can look at the efficiency of industry in Germany and look at the efficiency of industry in Italy. And German industry seems to weigh out efficiency Italian industry to this day. Now, you're not going to convince me that genetically somehow Germans are... I'm not a geneticist. I'm sure there are genetic, obviously, more than cosmetic. I'm sure there are more than cosmetic differences between the genes, pools, and the way people are. But I don't think that any of that comes down to the efficiency of industry in these two countries at this very day, at this very moment, not 50 years ago or 100 years ago. I'm talking today. I don't think genetic between Germans and Italians, efficiency in industry are the reason why there's a difference. And nowadays, of course, you can air condition, and I do think some of this comes out of environments. I think cold weather environments produces more industrious people than warm environments, but you can now air condition factories so that people are working in cooler environments so they don't get too hot and sweaty and need to take a nap in the middle of the day just because it's so goddamn fucking hot, and take a nap. I understand why people did that and why Northern Europeans don't do that, and it becomes a cultural thing. So, hey Arno, are you still around? There's another bot over on Facebook. You're getting busy today. Another bot on Facebook. Wow. Okay, so and if you want to go, and if you want to pull out, it's so much easier, more efficient to do business, industry in Germany because of the laws versus the laws in Italy. Laws are simply an expression of the culture of the people, codified into law. Okay, how much pollution do we want to allow a company to do? How orderly do we want people to drive? How, what actions can you do against other people? Like, you don't get to kill people. So in most places, culturally, just killing random people is wrong. so there's a law against it. Laws are just are the sort of codified expressions of the culture, to the point that they need punishment if you disobey them, as opposed to, you know, like you get punishment if you play music or any noise too loud in a residential neighborhood around here, if anybody actually enforced the law, kind of thing, because they have noise ordinance. But in the middle of the day, more or less, I'm sure you can get noisy enough that's just too noisy, but putting on literal rock concert kind of huge volume noise. But you can turn up most of your house speakers and open up the windows and let it go in the middle of the day and annoy your neighbors all they want. And the police, even if they're called, they'll probably just go, "Sorry, ma'am, can't do anything about it." If they're doing it at midnight, we'll come in and arrest them if we tell them to stop and they don't. So laws are an expression of the cultures of people. So if the laws governing industry are different between Italy and Germany, that's just because it's an expression of the culture. And so I believe the difference is cultural between Germany and Italy, and why Germany puts out more efficient industry. Well, as you have Germany dominate the situation more and more, it's going to upset the Italians because they're different cultures. There are going to be different practices. Somebody will come in and have different work regulations or different expectations of workers. And so it will cause problems. Thank you, Arno. So culture matters. And it is often, or we have been able to, partially through mass communication and the mass media, has really solidified this in many ways, centralized cultures, to where you can now, instead of, I'm a Bavarian, or I'm a Prussian, I'm a whatever, now you're just German. Not that there, like I say, there's differences between different regions in America, but I'm going to mention two shows that I didn't watch, and most people won't watch this one show anymore. But so much of America watched Friends and The Cosby Show back in the 90s. And so whether you were in the North or the South, the East or the West, you all had that in common. And I didn't, I watched an episode or two, but they weren't shows for me. But so much of American did, so it was a shared experience. And so nuances of language, nuances of behavior would get demonstrated and understood, and so it makes for commonization of culture. And so nationalism, patriotism, culture are at the root of just about everything, in my opinion. And communism, socialism, and I do mean socialism, and I get they see it as a double effect of World War I and World War II. I would say World War I wasn't such a nationalistic drive. It was more of a alliances and geopolitical alliances and strategic positions, and maybe gaining some more resources. It wasn't about German success maybe, but not wanting just conquering territories for Germans to live in. It was more than that. But they see it as World War I and World War II were nationalistic, and they see it as wrong. And quite honestly, most European, even the quote-unquote conservatives, most Europeans are socialists. They're definitely statists, but most of them are socialists. So they fear nationalism, they fear patriotism, they fear cultural identities, and they want to erode them. But I can see that this, and then we're going to be ending this episode on this here, not the live stream, but the episode here on this point, is that it shows that when you really need people to do things, you really need people to motivated to be willing to die for something. It really doesn't come down to they're not going, most people, I'm going to say most people, aren't going to die for an economic policy. They're just effing not. So the people of Russia are not going to die for Bolshevism, communism, or the Soviet, but they will die for Russia. The people of Germany aren't going to die for socialism. They're going to die for German nationalism. Yeah, National Socialism. The Nazis were a type of socialist. Not going to go into the details here. You can look at some of my other videos. But they were fighting for their nationalism. The people of Italy, well, they weren't very committed for any of this stuff. But Mussolini was trying to get them on the nationalistic front. But fascism, yeah, that was just his economic organization. But at the heart of it, again, is just socialism. Hierarchical socialism plus ultranationalism is what fascism is, as opposed to internationalism. And what you see is, and fascism is itself, as well as National Socialism, is also showing the failures of socialism, the lack of patriotic viewpoint in socialism and communism is a failure. And this is one thing that, because my understanding, and as somebody recently put it in European politics, is really the extreme right and the extreme left battling the center. And the center doesn't want to acknowledge reality. And when the center doesn't acknowledge reality, then we can look at like Marie Le Pen, whether you like her or hate her or whatever, it doesn't matter, she's a fact. And why are people in France voting for her? Is because the elites, the governing elites, have ignored reality, French culture in that particular thing. And they're allowing a lot of non-French cultural people to invade the country. And they're pursuing policies that are going to erode the French culture. And the elites want to do this, but the people don't want it. And so when the elites start doing something that the people don't want to do, they will start looking for radical solutions. Some will go to the radical left. Some will go to the radical right. But the radical right will tend to win. And it was, in many ways, the failures of the elites of the White Russians that caused them to lose the Civil War as opposed to win the Civil War. It really, I don't see it as Bolshevism was more popular than the church and the czar or something. I see it was they held the center position, and the whites weren't going to do a deal with the Baltic states or do a deal with Ukraine or do a deal with anybody else. They wanted the full borders all back, and they were at least honest enough, maybe too stupid, to admit that to people, as opposed to look for allies in several nationalistic groups that would allow chunks to go off but save the greater whole of Russia. That caused them the failure. It's not the only cause. It's also that the industrial center was held by the Bolsheviks as well. That does matter as well, but not the only cause. So the Bolsheviks die, so that allows communism to get a foothold in a major country. But most of the time we see all the reasons the extreme right will, if it becomes the only practical choices are the two extremes, the extreme right will win. So this is why the Great Patriotic War is an important point for people to understand people. and what motivates them and why they work. Okay, we're going to end this episode here. I want to thank you all for watching. Please post your comments. Tell me why I'm wrong. I mean, I think I'm right. I don't know that you're going to change my mind, but tell me why I'm wrong. Give me a well thought out article on, if you want, on why I'm wrong on some of this. Post it below. I'd love to hear that. I like challenging viewpoints, so long as it's not just like, you're wrong, motherfucker, go away. That doesn't help me. But if you tell me why I'm wrong, I'd really like to listen. So thank you, everyone. See you next time for, yes, even more Hearts of Iron and me talking about things that I hopefully are interested in.